everyone. I'm David Choi, head of the Greater China Equities at BNP Paribas AM. Today, I'm going to give you an update of the Chinese equity market. 2021 has been an eventful year. A lot of things have happened. In the first half of the year, actually, we saw China is experiencing an extremely strong recovery. They have such a strong recovery because the country is the first to get COVID under control. And because of that, actually, they can get the factory and manufacturing open while the world is still trying to fight the COVID. So actually, industrial production and export has been a strong factor and the reason why China has been such a strong growth in the first half. But a lot of that is coming to an end. It's not like China is not recovering anymore, but the peak of the recovery, I think, is passing us in the middle of the year. So now we are entering a phase of moderation, slowing growth, even though we are still recovering. And there are a lot of things happening. And recently, the inflation in the energy prices have challenges the recovery as well. A lot of companies in China, especially for the midstream and downstream companies, are getting pressure because of that energy inflation. We are getting on that issue because during the COVID, a lot of the energy producers actually are reducing the capex. And now, because of the faster than expected and the reopening of the global economy, basically we are getting into a supply squeeze. And because of that, now we are in a stage that because of the high input costs, the pace of the recovery globally, including of that of China is getting challenged. So other than the moderation of the recovery of the Chinese economy, another hot topic of late is the property crisis. As you may all heard that actually a lot of some of the developers in China, including Evergrande, they are either having troubles or they fail to make the payment to the bond. So that makes people to think actually what will go next on the Chinese property market. And just to give a quick recap, the Chinese property developers, they rely on a fast asset turnover model coupled with a high leverage. But that fast growth model is not going to sustain. And now they are getting into troubles. However, we do not think that this is the Lehman moment of China for several reasons. First of all, compared to the GFC era in 2008, where the entire value chain is excessive, ranging from the home buyers to the loan facilitators, to the banks, to the developers, everyone is excessive. But in China, actually, it's indeed true that some of these property developers are highly leveraged. But actually, a portion of the value chain is still intact. The household debt, even though it's rising, is still within a safety range. A lot of them, when they buy houses, they actually require to put down hefty down payment. And also the banks in China, actually, they're also very conservative. So actually, their balance sheet also is actually under control. We do see that government is slowly putting together a coordinated action to fight the problem and fight the issue and try to improve the confidence in the sector, which is something that we don't have in the GFC, where everyone is panicked and none of the actions are coordinated. So for example, the government already sent a team, legal and accounting expert to Evergrande. What they are doing is going to restructure the asset of the company, following the first step or the approach they did for HNA Group. Basically, they will ring-fence the project finances from the troubles at the balance sheet at the company level. And also, we see the banks in China slowly re-injecting liquidity into the property developers, releasing loans again. And also, we see some of the local governments also start to approve the mortgage application. So we slowly see that the situation is getting stabilized, even though we are not totally out of the wood. Because the determination of the government to control the asset inflation is real and solid, and we shall not underestimate that. For the months coming and for the months ahead, we will still see a few property developers that fail to make the loan payment. But by and large, we think the situation will be under control. And also, lastly, but also an important point is that during the GFC, the demand of the housing disappeared, but not in China right now. Actually, the intention to buy is still there, and people still have the purchasing power because the household leverage is not excessively high at the moment. And as long as people still see confidence in the job and the economy is stable, the intention of purchase is still there to support the property sectors. So this is the current state of the properties. What we will be seeing going forward is the property sales probably won't be going as fast as before, and the inflation of the housing prices will also be slowing down going forward. But it doesn't mean that the housing sector in China will disappear. What the Chinese government doing is try to de-risk the situation and try to let the property sector to grow more steadily and stably for the future years, even though the growth is not going to be as fast as before. We have to remember that the housing is about 1/3 of the loan book, about also 1/3 of the local government revenue, and also about 1/3 of the household wealth. So this is not a sector that the Chinese government is going to gamble on. And to the next topic is really about the regulation. There's a lot of regulation this year on a lot of sectors, ranging from the internet to education to the properties. So people start to wonder what to do next, what to go from here, and there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. But instead of looking at specific regulation and thinking that is all the private sectors in China is going to get bust, actually we need to take a step back and look at what are the key agendas of the government. So there are three in our view. Number one is really about narrowing the social inequality, narrowing the gap between the rich and the poor. And secondly is about fighting the aging society, reversing the aging trend in the demographics. And thirdly is about national security. And this day when we talk about national security, it's not only about energy. Actually, a lot of that is related to data security. So if we look at a lot of this regulation, actually, they all touch on either one or combination of these three agendas. But if we talk about the intensity of the regulation, I think it's behind us. But these three agendas will be here to stay, and we will still see regulations relate to these three agendas for the years ahead. But we have to remember, actually, regulation has always been part of the story in the Chinese equity market. It comes and goes. I think what we need to realize is actually there's a two sides of the coin. When we talk about the regulation and what we see in the news, we also have to remember the other side of the coin. For example, when we talk about the regulation on the property sector, what they are trying to do is to de-risking the system such that the leverage in the property sector will be lowered and the whole space can go at a more healthy pace going forward. And also when we talk about common prosperity, actually what they are targeting is to create a bigger and stronger middle classes, supporting the consumption space in China for the years to come. So what we need to do is just to keep calm and stay balanced and realize the agenda of the governments. And from there, we can pick out the best ideas. There are opportunities because a lot of times the market is indiscriminately selling off the entire market, but that actually creates opportunities for investment. So what brings us now to the outlook of the economy or the market going forward? I think for the next few months, it's still going to be tough because we have talked about a lot of things in China happening this year, from regulation to property crisis to the normalization of the economy. None of these things will actually crash the economy. But then when you add all these things one by another, it does create a momentum for the economy to be in the weakening or normalization phase. So quite likely we will see the normalization of the economy going into the first half of 2022. So the next few months will still going to be very volatile as the market is slowly adjusting to the new reality of a normalized stage of the economy, just like pre-COVID. But with that, I think we have to remember the basic ingredient for the Chinese economy actually is still intact. If we think about the structure of the economy, we now have a higher mix of the consumption and servicing sector in the structure. And in the last few years, actually the innovation environment in China has become very robust, not only in the technology space, but also in the life science space. And also China has been technically underweight among the global asset allocators. So there are lots of things that will support the equity market in the medium long term, as long as the market itself can find an equilibrium for the market in the near term, taking into the consideration of the normalization trend. With that, I would say what we will do is stay calm, stay selective, and stay long term. If we look back the history, what it tells us is these are the time actually are the best time that we are going to invest in the Chinese market. It's always the best time. So as long as we are staying on course, we will find opportunities amid all the volatilities. So that's all for today. Thank you very much.